Welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here with Mike Giannulis, and Mike grows and scales companies. He uses real-world experience to make it happen. Mike helps leaders and entrepreneurs live better lives and build bigger businesses. And we're going to find out what that means for you personally as far as motivation, headlines, copywriting, scaling your business. Mike is the kind of guy you need to sit up and pay very close attention to. So Mike, glad to be talking to you.
Hey man, I'm happy to be here. This is quite cool for me.
Well, it's cool for me too. And so can you tell us, what is your shtick? What is your deal? And what has you fired up lately?
Sure, man. So basically at this point in my, time, I've been at this kind of stuff going on. I hate to say it, but closing in on 20 years in this kind of internet space. But right now, what I'm mainly focused on is a group of partners and myself. We acquire companies and we help grow them and scale them. Sometimes we partner with people if it kind of makes sense, but it just depends on how that stuff is. But yeah, so I just like to kind of on the side, I kind of share things, share tips and advice. Right now, we're focusing mainly on health companies and supplement companies. So that's been kind of what we do. I started on that track back in 2018, where we took a health company, and over the last few years, we've been able to scale it about 5x from about 900 grand to almost 5 million in annual sales.
Exciting and fantastic. And I like your strategy here of not just starting from scratch, right? Because that's really tempting to say, well, I've got some idea. And then who knows how many years that will take, and who knows how much your own time will be split, because now you're working on like 12 projects instead of 11 projects. So this is cool because you say you find these businesses that I don't know, maybe underperforming is a mean way of saying it, but there are definitely missed opportunities. There are definitely things that can be done with you and applying your marketing juice. And I see this all the time with some of these guys come in and the business is worth this and it's making this amount, and they just apply a few marketing tricks like running ads, building a list, changing the product line. They just make these tiny changes and it really explodes the business. So it's exciting to hear about stories like that. So to give us an idea of you working your magic, can you tell us one of these stories about, like, I don't know if you feel like sharing about this 5X company here, but can you just tell us about some company that you swooped in and why you chose them, and then what you did to really beef things up?
Sure, that's great. This is stuff that I enjoy a lot. So yeah, I'll give you a few stories. One, the company that we were able to 5X, mainly that one was just I was honestly just scaling paid traffic. And I know that's not very sexy, but what we did with that company was we came in, we were able to get a better line of credit with Facebook. Again, you never see this taught, right? I mean, like, this is no taught strategy. It's always some little weird Facebook ad hack, right? But what we were able to do was, because it was a cheaper product, it was tougher to scale. So we were able to get a $1 million credit line, and that was able to buy us 30 days extra, which allowed us to spend more time on the ads, more spend on the ad, and we have a 30-day cycle. So before we go for the bigger upsell. So that just helped to expand things out. We were able to bring in more staff, better product, better support. And we also did a lot of streamlining, and we also began to automate a lot of things that were being done live. So that particular one was a lot of systems and financial stuff. Again, not very sexy, but that's the real stuff right now. One that I can say too, like, we did have an issue where the front end was kind of struggling. So we were able to create, and again, this is probably like the secret sauce, and to me and for you, sure, I'm sure too, so simple, but just adding in more upsells, tweaking the upsell pricing. It's amazing how many people don't do that. They just don't even, either they don't know or they think they've already got it. And so we were able to come in and add, this was in the keto space. So we were able to take, well, we already had all this. We already had a bunch of recipes, and we were able to take all the ones that were like sweet or salty, and we made like the sweet and salty cookbook, and we threw that on as an upsell. I wrote the copy in literally half an hour or under, And that thing still now converts 25, 30, 40%. And it's like a $37 price point. And that just really helped to boost up the AOV. And we were able to spend more on the ad. So, a lot of times it's a lot of this small stuff. I think that we get roped in because we all buy everything. This is me. I buy every new like Facebook ad course or this hack or that hack. And ultimately when you come into like a real company, it's mainly the small things like that, the upsells, the downsells, the email follow-up, the onboarding sequences. Those are some of the things. I'll give you an example too of a company that we just bought like this week. And we were going through the funnel, and they have a 35% bump order. So a bump, if for those who don't know, is on the checkout page. It's like, yes, I want to add this, thing for whatever price point. They have a 35% bump rate, which you would think that's incredible, right? That's very, very high. But the price point for that bump, $3.99 for a full ebook video course. And so I just rewrote the bump, and we're going to bring that price up to around probably 19 or so. And even if it drops to 20%, it's still a net positive. And I don't think it'll actually drop that much. So again, very small, super simple. You've done the same thing, but there's just people, and the guy, he had this company for years, never touched it, so, and again, let's say somehow he did test it and we're just completely off and it's just going to bomb, right? And then we'll put it back. Like it's not a real big thing. We would do a split test, but it's through a third party, so we can't. It's kind of either on or off. So we're just going to turn it on for 3 or 4 days, see it, and add it all up. And then if it's good, then we can scale more.
Well, that's exciting. And there's like 5 things that are swirling around in my head from what you said there. And one thing is that it's easy to only look at, like the best things people post on Facebook, or just to look at like the best things that are on a sales letter, or just be on a webinar where they're showing you the greatest hits. And like sometimes it's more fun to check out someone's blog post or dive into like a long form podcast like you and I are here. We're kind of just like talking about the case studies where it's sure it's leading to contact me or go to my site, but it's not like a directly heading to a sale. So sometimes we talk about the real stuff that if you were to say it on a sales letter or a webinar, you might not want to tell a story like that because you don't want to talk someone out of buying like right then and there. But I love the real stuff like that. And you're making me feel bad, but it's okay, because I think that we're all guilty of setting up some order process like 8 years ago. And then it just was set up that way and we forgot about it. Like the $3.99 upsell, like why not do something bigger? And that's actually been on my mind the last couple of days, is just like, oh yeah, I've got this offer and I don't have a one-time offer for this. And for this, I don't have a downsell for that. I'm not retargeting that. There's always more to do. And usually from what you're saying here is it's usually just like the marketing fundamentals. And what's also great about what you're mentioning here is you're not getting caught up in the technical details, right? You're saying, I'm not even, if I can't split test based on my platform, no big deal. I'll just switch it and then check the data for those days. And if there's a huge change, then, and I don't like what the change is, I can always just switch it back. And I mean, I love stuff like that where, and I'm sure you've been in the situation where maybe you've asked one of your prospective business here, like, well, how many customers do you get per day? Or what's your conversion rate? And people don't know, but it's like, even if you're not technically tracking it, you can always go back and look at the clicks, look at the sales, and get an eyeball it, a ballpark figure, and you don't need to let the technology get in the way. So that's kind of some of the lessons that I'm getting from you today. And so one thing that you mentioned there, Mike, which was really cool, was you said that you thought of this upsell and the sweet and salty thing, and then you jumped in and in just 30 minutes you came up with an upsell page. And we know each other a little bit, and we both like to get things done fast, right? We both like to just like keep it simple, make a sales letter, and that's kind of where I think the magic happens. Why spend 5 months on a sales letter when you can do it in 30 minutes? So do you have any, I don't know, magic secret sauce or things to share with us about getting the sales letter done really quick? Because it sounds exciting.
Yeah, fast food copywriting. Yeah, I actually, that's an old program that you did, I think, and I actually did buy a lot of your early stuff when I was getting started, which is kind of cool. That's why I think it's a kind of full circle. But yeah, I think for me, when it comes to like the speed of getting things done, one of my hacks, and again, this has been tough for me because it's not very sexy, but whenever I do research, and like, I try to never write from scratch. I try to never write from a blank page. So I actually create, tons and tons of different templates. And whenever I find something, whether it's in an ebook, online, in a blog post, anything that I go, oh, that's kind of cool, I'll actually copy it and I'll put it into like my little backend software and I tag it. So I would tag it with like where I found it, what it might be for, if it's for a certain thing. And then whenever I have to write anything, I can just type in that keyword and see everything that I ever found on that topic. And I actually have a whole little system that I use for that. And it makes it like so much easier because like you ever just sit down, you're like, what the freak am I going to say now? And then, so I can just punch in an idea or a keyword and then just read like 20 things. And that's enough for my brain to go, oh yeah, that was this thing. And then there's that thing. And that's also why I think it does pay off to kind of stick to an industry if you can, because one of the biggest and like toughest challenges is figuring out who you're talking to and what their problems are and what they truly want. Not what they say they want, but what they truly want. If you kind of know those three things, the rest of it is just kind of filling those things in, right? Here's how what I have is going to give you what you want. And so that's a big thing for me. So I try to not do everything, like trying to, because, there's stuff that like, if you brought me in and said, hey, I want you to help me sell cabinets, what I mean? I'm going to start just like anyone, like, well, why do people want them? And I have to go all the way back. But if it's like, business stuff, Facebook ads, weight loss, those things are things that I've been around, so I can jump in on those. I myself used to weigh over 500 pounds, so I know what that's like. So I've been down that route.
So, and so there's some good stuff in there that like having a swipe file. That way you're not stuck in just with the blank page. And that's, again, you're reminding me of all these good habits I used to have that like they haven't completely fallen off the wayside, but I used to add to a swipe file on my phone like a couple of times a week. And these days it's more like a couple of times a month. And I remember like I used to pile things on, and anytime I saw like a cool email subject line or like a phrase on a webinar that someone even like, you can tell they didn't realize how powerful just that one sentence was, but it like drew me in. And things like in person, or like if I saw a stage speaker, just little things that excited me, I'd add that to the swipe file. And then if I noticed that the same phrase or whatever went unused, eventually I delete it. But then you're so right of just like having that library of those ideas. And that's interesting too, of like sticking to a niche or a handful of niches. That way you don't have to start from scratch with the psychology, because what you mentioned there is there's kind of like, there's like two ends of the spectrum with the copywriting, right? There's like the tidbits, there's like the tactics, the headlines, all the magic gimmicks, which that's important to get attention. But then there's also like the foundation of going back and understanding like the psychology of, someone who wants a weight loss program, or what are they thinking? And it's pretty cool to think about, because it's like if you have both sides of that, you pretty much got it made. And you're reminding me that like, I'm sure we're both in like Facebook groups for copywriters. And I saw someone a few months ago who was like trying out some copy. And he said like, well, it was like from some keto weight loss thing. So right up your alley. But it was like some girl was at the front door, and she was like saying, I tried this and this weight loss. And people jumped into the comments saying like, well, this is a nice story that you're saying, but it doesn't sound like a woman is saying these words. Like you have these characters in the story, and you're getting us to visualize what's happening, but it's just it's a man saying the words, but then in your woman character is actually the one saying it. And so it's like it's cool to think about just all these like little tweaks and all these pieces, how they come together, and then the magic happens. And so so there's already so much to talk about. And I know that you have a belief that motivation is a myth and goals don't work. And I think that hearing about this can be very helpful. So what do you have to say to us about being motivated and having goals?
Yeah, sure. So first, I'll say one quick thing, just a quote that I came up with that for people that write copy, and that is a good copywriter knows the rules. A great copywriter knows the prospect. And that just goes to show you that if you know who you're speaking to, you can get away with all the sins. You can have a crappy everything, but if you're talking to the right person and you're saying the right things, you can do anything. The best copy ever isn't going to do anything if it's not speaking to the right prospect. Anyway, so I thought I'd throw that out there. But
That's
yeah,
good.
so that's actually something that the whole motivation thing is something that I've dealt with for quite some time, because I had a lot of people come to me and say, how have you done the things that you've done? So I have done some pretty cool stuff. I don't say it to brag, because I've had to work for it hard, but I've been able to do well in my business life, weight loss, all these things. And people would always say to me, if I ever like spoke at an event, they say, oh, I could never do what you did. I just don't know how you do it. There's this like, common thing. And I think that many of us have this idea that the people that are successful are like getting up every day at 4 a.m., going for a jog, coming back with their green smoothie. You know what I mean? Like we create this sort of like perfection concept. But the truth is, success comes not because you are better than anyone else or you're doing it. It's just that you're consistent and you don't rely on motivation to get you there. See, motivation is truly just an emotional feeling. All it is an opt-out on the way to doing what you're supposed to. You're basically saying, should I do this thing? Yes or no? Yes. Do I feel like it? AKA, am I motivated? No, then opt out. So truthfully, it's just adding a step in sort of the decision tree. So if you get rid of that step and say, it doesn't really matter if I feel like it or if I don't, I'm just going to do that thing. And so that's why I talk about motivation being a myth. And then the other piece with goals, and this is a big one, and I haven't heard anyone really talk about this per se, but it's almost like common sense. So I don't know if it's really that profound, but the idea for me is that I've never really believed in goals. I did when I was younger, but to me, a goal back then was like, I would write it down and I would like say it to myself every day. I will lose weight. I will be fit. I would say all this stuff. But I started to realize that truthfully, all a goal truly is a headline with a deadline. And truthfully, a goal should just be the headline of a to-do list. So the big, I guess, mental change for me was when I converted goals into projects. If you think about it, if you create a project, you don't just go, I'm going to write a sales page, and you get up every day, I'm going to write a sales page, right? You would, it's just dumb, but you would say, I'm going to write a sales page, which means I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And if you're building out an actual project, you would also say, if I need help, I'm going to go to this person. If I get stuck, I'm going to do this. If this doesn't come through, I'm going to do that. So you create contingencies to make that project a reality, and you make sure to focus on it. The odds of you completing a project are way higher than you achieving a goal. And so all I want people to do is to convert goals into projects, no matter what it is. And if you do that, it becomes more and more of a reality. And then to kind of top that whole thing off, there's an entire like educational, instructional background on how to achieve projects. There's a whole school of thought on like agile, lean, all these different ways. And if you can apply those same things to goal structuring, and that's pretty awesome, because they've already figured out all the things that can go wrong with projects. So you don't have to start from scratch. So that's it. That's my big aha.
And both of those ideas, I mean, those are simple but huge ideas. And I think that they're things that maybe people have heard of or heard parts of and then just immediately written it off. But like it's worth repeating. It's so huge and it's easy to forget about. Just that point number one, that you can't rely on motivation. And I love the way that you put that, Mike, that it's like, well, there's a thing that you should do, you decided to do, you need to do in order to keep your business going. But then you add this other barrier in front of it saying like, well, also I need to be in a good emotional state to do it. It's like, why would you do that to yourself? You've ticked all these other boxes, but you're saying, oh, but just this one little tiny thing is the reason why I don't feel like doing it today. And I mean, even as you were explaining that, like there's been so many times when, I mean, you and I both, we haven't felt like going to this appointment or making this web page. But it's like, well, what about after you do it? Now you'll be able to do these other things, or you get this money that you can do other stuff with. And so, yeah, the way that you put it, it sounds ridiculous to say, well, let me also be in like the happiest mood I've ever been in order to do this. Like, why just do it? And then even if it takes half an hour or an hour, it'll be done. And then you'll feel good that you did it. And then also, yeah, like not having the vague goal is what I'm hearing, is that all these kind of project methodologies came about from computer programming, because that there's like so many moving parts, there's so many things that need to be done, and there's a huge likelihood of failure if there isn't an exact plan. And so they just apply that to your regular everyday task. And I mean, so simple and so powerful to do that. And yeah, it seems like when people like they set goals and it's vague and it's a thing where like they know deep down they won't even start it or finish it. So I like your thought process here of make it a whole project, build it out, know what the pieces are, know that you have to do this first, and then that leads to that. There's like sub deadlines, there's people that are involved to help you out if you fail. I mean, it makes perfect sense to just be more organized and think more things through. So this is all great stuff that bears listening to again and again. And I want to make sure that as we are kind of starting to ramp down our conversation, that we talk about like copywriting in the modern day and age, because like you said, Mike, you and I have been around for decades, and sometimes it's
dinosaurs now, right? In the internet age.
Yeah. Now we're dinosaurs. Now there's like whole generations that came after us. But back in the good old days of, coding HTML by hand and pushing the cart up the hill both ways, there was like the long form sales letter, right? And I'm sure they're still around and it's still fun, but you see so much of this weird, like blending it with content or adding in navigation. It seems like such a tug of war, right? Between I just want to do the direct sales versus the Google Gons and everyone else wants us to add more information. So what are your thoughts about copywriting in this modern day and age of multiple pages, WordPress sites? Like, what do you have to say about adapting copywriting to the modern day and age?
Yeah, so we still use a lot of longer form stuff, mainly VSL type structures. But what I've begun to see and kind of been doing more of, and I wish I could like draw because I could show this, but picture like the long form sales page, break it up into chunks and then turn it sideways. So one long sales page may become 6 pages. So I think the idea is, how do we take the same principles of what we're going after and turn that into multiple contact points? So we do that some with like video training. So we're about to roll out a back-end program for like that will sell keto coaching to these people that are buying a keto software to, give them help to build out their food plan. And so I thought about what are the things that these people need to understand in order to be able to want to pay someone to coach them, instead of doing this long, like hour-long webinar or pitch or sales page. I'm creating sort of like content-based individual pieces. So a sales rep can say, hey, go watch this and call me back. Go watch this and call me back. Go watch this. So, and that can take place over time. So I think the trade-off is the direct sales page, kind of like, go at them hard. That is going to only get you 1 or 2% of people that are like, very, very in it right then and there. I think by turning the sales page sideways, breaking it up, you can then have people take those stops and say, here's like your intro and kind of like that hook. And then here's like, belief 1 that you want them to believe 2, belief 3. And then when you get to the sales page or like the ending, you can say, look, so now that you need A, you need B, you need C. And don't worry, we've done all that for you. That's here. And this is in the course. So that's kind of what we've done, is kind of use content. If you actually look at it, some of the best sales pages are content too. You know what I mean? There's always a portion that is teaching or instructing. So, and that's what people want. What people don't like is the, discover this 10 secrets right now, that stuff. So if you can kind of, work that in, but do it in a way that's not quite so hard. And I do think as we continue to age up, we will see like the Gen Z kids who are coming up now, they're highly skeptical. they've been there. So I do think that there will have to be changes to the way things are done. But one thing I can for sure say is that humans don't really change their core desires. So I think that stuff's going to all stay the same. There may be some tweaks to how we speak to them. Like, it's obvious the sort of like baby boomer like angles don't do as well now as they did, because back in the day it was all very much like fear-based stuff, and the coming crashes, everything was around there. Those things can still do okay, but they're just not as like strong as they were, because that generation had a belief system that the next one doesn't have. So that's where people forget. And I think that if you mistake what worked for what always will work, that's where you have to watch out.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about it. Like, it's almost like there's like the fads and the trends. And then you're making me think about like there's like this age group that's fear-based and this age group that's not. And then there's this age group that maybe had a longer attention span and the new one doesn't. But like you said, like the human psychology is always the same. And you're making me think back to about these long form sales letters that had good content kind of mixed in there. And maybe it's like some of those things can be pulled out and can be like mini videos or like, blog posts or things like that. And it seems like you just see more of that these days, that many people come with specific problems. Whereas maybe before it was like, well, I want to lose weight and I don't know much about it. Like, they're kind of super far back on the stages of awareness, but now they're like, I've heard of keto and I've heard of intermittent fasting and I've heard of like this blood sugar testing, and like so many times they come with like a really specific like long tail kind of thing. And so that's cool to think about that. If you're in like, it's kind of like more customized these days. And if you have those sales videos materials at the ready, then if someone's close to buying you, the salesperson can just send them over to that, which is again a blending of the old school and a new school, right? It's not there's not that much technology involved, maybe like, I don't know, maybe retargeting or something, but the whole idea of making a small piece of content, putting it on a web page, having it as part of your sequence. I mean, that's an idea as old as marketing. So it's kind of trippy a little bit to think about. There's like the blend of the old and the new still happening, and that the technology itself is not going to save us. Like, even going back to the split testing example there, like sometimes you just have to make a change and see what happens. And so with all of your copywriting experience, with all of the ups and downs you've had over the last who knows how many decades, do you have like one big piece of advice? Do you have something that you think that kids these days are really missing out on, that they should be enlightened about?
In the copy world, or just generally speaking?
Either one, whatever comes into your brain, if it's copywriting or general.
Yeah, no, I do think, I think the younger people, I do think that, especially, okay, I'll start here. I do believe that many people that write copy could be doing a lot more. And I don't want to stop them, because obviously it's good for me, because I can say, hey, I'll pay you $5,000, and they're pumped. But I think that people that write copy can do a lot more than that. So they could go find people and create partnerships. The ability to write copy and sell stuff is way more rare than being a keto expert or a business expert or whatever. I mean, it's just, the world runs by people that know how to sell stuff. It's just the way it is. So for every expert, for every probably 1,000 experts, there's one person who knows how to take that person, package them up, and sell them in a way. I mean, and so I would say, if you're younger, be thinking about that. Get your skill set, get paid for it, but don't be afraid at some point to go out on your own and try something. And I've seen a lot of people that just don't. Now, I get it. Some people just like to write, and that's all they want to do. I like to write, but not that much. I'm not like the guy that's going to be in his house all day, every day, just, trying to, type stuff up. And there are some other skill sets that you'll have to pick up. But I think when you write copy, you end up kind of, at least for me, when I got my start, I had to touch everything. It was like, hey, I'm going to go figure out how to fix this because the site broke. Hey, I'm going to have to go figure out why the sales guy can't sell. I'm going to fix the script. Support says their refunds are high. Let's go see why. It's like you get pulled in to everything. And then that's kind of, so I think if you're open to that, I think you should go down that, route for sure.
And that's interesting to think about that. So there's number one, there's the issue of the world needs like more salespeople, and there's so many like experts who are stuck in obscurity. And you hear a lot about that even from like, people teaching content marketing. They talk about like 80-20, and they're saying like, the tendency is to spend 80% of your time making your product good or writing your book and making it really good. And then people are stuck only spending 20% of their time marketing themselves. And they say, well, you should flip it. You should spend 20% of your time on your product and your backend and your offer, whatever, but then 80% of the time just getting the word out there, because that's the most slow going part. And so that's interesting to think about. And then, like you said, don't be afraid of being curious and jump in where things need jumping in, because it's easy to see like an error message on a website and say, oh, this is spam, I just want to close that. And it's like, well, sometimes it's a little bit of a hassle to fix this or that website issue, but like sometimes you have to, especially early on, especially if you can't hire this person for this and that person for that. Sometimes you have to get your hands a little bit dirty just to get the job done. So but you know what? That's kind of the fun of it, right? That's kind of like the scrappiness and the problem solving and like the entrepreneurship of it. And so, there's lots of cool things to think about here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just, in the last like 6 months, I've really doubled down on, I figured out and took a bunch of training on Google Tag Manager. I'd always had other people do that for me. And I was like, you know what, let me get in there. And now that I have, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Same with Google Sheets. I've now started to build out all my own sheets. I actually built my first like program, and I use that for my database. And those are things that I think like a lot of people, I don't know, like for me, I was always like, who cares? But now, and also for me, for me, it's fun. It's just fun to learn something else, And so I kind of joke that I'm an internet marketer, and now I'm focusing more on the internet side of that, So because I spent the first 15 years all sales and that side. So but yeah, I think if you can broaden your skill set, it's like there's a great saying where I think it was Scott Adams. He has a book about how to I can't remember what it's called, but it's I think it's like how to fail but still win big. Yeah. Anyway, he talks about how like he Scott Adams is a guy that created the Dilbert stuff. So he basically said like, I wasn't the best guy to draw. I wasn't the best guy at comedy. I wasn't the best guy within an MBA, but I was the best at those three. I was the guy that had all three of those. I could draw okay. I had an MBA, and I could write, okay. So then he became this ultimate expert. So many people, if you're struggling, it's like try to have 2 or 3 skills that you stack. And suddenly then you're like the guy or gal with that skill set,
Yeah, that's really powerful. That there's always the talk of creating your own category and things like that.
Yeah.
But then, like when you have these kind of skills that a lot of people don't have at the same time, then there's your uniqueness and there's your USP, to use copywriting terms.
Yeah.
And it seems like it comes from the way that we're talking here. It seems it comes about from the curiosity and sometimes trying new things and trying something new and, jumping into like Google Sheets or something like that doesn't need to be forever. You can just watch the Google Tag Manager video and play around with it and then say, okay, well, I set it up, but I don't want to have to maintain it. Someone else can do that. Or even if someone else is doing it, you can kind of just get a better idea for what it is that they're doing. Like, I mean, sometimes I have employees that say, well, in Slack, you can add this and this and add like this workflow and this form. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, I need to watch some YouTube videos, kind of like you said that you did, because like there's so many like little features of all this software and all these tools that we use that we're just barely scratching the surface of, and they're worth looking into. And that comes from loving learning and being curious and being willing to be wrong and doing experiments and then looking at the data and then like adjusting from that. So, I mean, so much cool stuff to think about. This really is the best time to be alive, best time to be an entrepreneur. So if people are as excited and fired up as I am from our conversation here, Mike, what's the next step here? Where should they go to find out more about you, find out about your company, your website? Where do we go?
Yeah, sure. So my main website is onlyonemike.com. It's way old, so it's not a very good site name, but it's only Mike.com, only one Mike.com. And Also, I'm actually putting together a software to help people write copy faster, and it's called Pronto, and that's up at prontowrite.com. It's not out yet, but it will be soon, and it's going to be pretty awesome. It's combining templates, the ability to grab info from anywhere, and AI. It's kind of like it'll be the first of its kind. So prontowrite.com, you can go there and get on the pre-list.
Fantastic. Well, now you're speaking my language, right? Combining the psychology with the marketing and the cutting edge stuff like the AI sounds exciting. ProntoWrite.com is the place to go, and onlyonemike.com. Any final parting words of advice here, Mike, as we wrap up, wind down our conversation?
Just no matter what, keep at it. You know what I mean? Like I want to say like too, also all the things that I say and teach, I'm not 100%, you know what I mean? I'm not the perfect guy. There's days that I'm like, screw this. I'm not doing anything, even though I do understand it. Like I'm not perfect, and I don't want people to think that, but it's all about being better than you were before, right? So don't ever feel like you have to reach up to some ideal that you read about, or that you're not Jeff Bezos or whatever, right? Or Elon, right? Be the best you that you can be, and then see where you end up.